In this week's Parashat Ki Tezeh, we have ourselves the mitzvah of the ben sorer umoreh. We have ourselves the commandment to kill the wayward and defiant son. Okay, what's the story all about? It says the Pesukim, Ki yeh le'ish ben sorer umoreh. If a certain person is going to have a son who's a wayward and defiant son, he doesn't follow in his parents' ways. It says actually, Eino shomea bekol aviv uvekol imo. He doesn't listen to his father and his mother. Vayisru oto velo yishma lehem. And even after they discipline him, he doesn't obey them. You have a person who does not listen to his parents. The parents will take him, bring him to the skenim, to the sha'ar. And they're going to say, this son of ours is disloyal, he's defiant, he's a ben sorer umoreh. He doesn't listen to us. He doesn't hear us. Zolel v'soveh. He's a glutton and he's a drunkard. So what's the halacha? The council's going to come out, all the people are going to come, they're going to stone him, babanim bamet, he's going to die, and you're going to be able to remove the evil from your midst. And then everyone's going to be, all these people are going to be able to hear, and they'll be scared, and they'll get the lesson. Okay. So now, we have an interesting case with this kid who's not listening to his parents, and what's the punishment? The punishment is the death penalty. That's like a really extreme punishment. Now, if you open up the Gemara in Sanhedrin will give you a lot of details that, based on these details, this case can't really happen. Like, the parents have to have the same voice, and that they look the same, and then also, what kind of parent would do this in the first place? Bring their kid to the court for this kind of thing. But they also say that the kid himself has to have done a little bit more. Like, Rashi by us says that what's going to happen, can only ben sorer umoreh eno chayav ad sheyignov veyochar tartemar basar v'shteh chatzi log yain. Based on the Gemara, he's only responsible if he stole from his parents' money in order to feed his tabot, to be able to buy that meat, to drink that wine. And then it says, okay, but why is he being killed? What's that all about? So he says, based on the Gemara, uven sorer umoreh neherag al shem sofo. He's being killed right now by the court, al shem sofo, based on what's going to ultimately happen to me, based on what his end is going to be. He has this disposition to become so evil. So right now, higia Torah lesof da'ato. The Torah already knows where he's going to go. Sof shemechalem mamon aviv u'mekesh limudo ve'eno motzeh ve'omer b'pashat drachim u'menasatem et habriyot. Basically, he said this guy's going to steal all of his parents' money. When that's not going to work out, he's going to run out of money. He's going to go steal from other people. He's going to become a thief, and ultimately he's going to be a murderer. So therefore, Amra Torah yamut zakai v'al yamut hayab. So says the Gemara in Sanhedrin Ayin Aleph. Rashi quotes a Sifri as well. Rashi is quoting that ultimately better for him to die now, zakai, before he's guilty of the worst sins possible, and let him not die guilty after doing those terrible sins. So basically, he's being judged based on the future. Okay. So a couple years ago, the rabbi in my Beit Knesset, Rabbi Nordlicht, he asked two questions that I thought were awesome on this Dvar Torah. One of them is very famous, one of them is a little bit less famous. Let's start with the less famous question. He says, okay, we saw in the Gemara that there's a little bit more rules in the Gemara for why we have to kill him, and we see as the story goes on, he becomes a glutton, and he drinks, and all these things, but at the very start of the story, what was his problem? The problem was, Einenu shomea bekol aviv uvekol imo. He's not listening to the voice of his father. He's not listening to the voice of his mother. And interesting, I was just thinking at the very end of the story, it says what's going to happen at the very end? Everyone's going to Yishmael, everyone's going to hear, and then everyone's going to be scared to understand. Basically, his problem from the very beginning is he's not listening at all to his parents. He's disconnected from his parents. Now, why is that so important? What's that all about? Okay, that's Rabbi Norlich's first question. The second question he asked is a little bit more famous. We have another chazal. That seems to say the exact opposite principle. And this time, it's talking about the story of Yishmael. We're going to read about this on Rosh Hashanah, in the Torah reading on Rosh Hashanah. It's a key story to understand how the teshuvah process works. Okay, and the background is, Hashem had just agreed with Sarah Imenu to send Hagar and Yishmael away, because Yishmael was being a bad influence on Yitzchak, whatever that means exactly. And she says, okay, let's send them away. And I was hard for Avraham. Hashem says, no, listen to your wife. And he sends them away. And they go wandering in the desert, and they run out of water. And at one point, Yishmael gets sick, and he almost dies. Says the Midrash. This is the Midrash in Breshit Rabbah, Parashat Nun Gimel Ot Yudalid. Okay, it says as follows. You see it in Rashi over there as well. Amar Rabbi Simon. Says Rabbi Simon, Kaptzu Malachei Hashavet lekatrego. When the Malachei Hashavet saw that this Na'ar is crying, he's about to die, they jumped as a prosecution against them. Amru lefanav, Ribon haolamim adam shu atid la'amid et banecha bet sameh atam ma'aleh lo be'er. He says, He says, Hashem, Ribono Shel Olam, this guy is going to kill the Jewish people in the future. His descendants are going to kill us. But Sameh, actually be stories that we're going to be sent into exile, and he's going to give us these canteens that we thought were full of water, but it's full of like hot air that's going to kill us. He's going to murder us by not giving us water. Now you want to give him water? Now you want to save him? Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Amar Lahem, Achshav Mahu. He asked the angels, what is he now? Tzaddik or Rasha? Is he a tzaddik or is he a rasha? Meaning, is he guilty or is he not guilty? There's a lot of questions right now because the way Rashi learns that he was trying to kill Yitzchak, he doesn't seem like the biggest tzaddik. But you have to work that out somehow. But right now, is he a rasha to the point of dying because of what his kids are going to do over there? Amrulo, right now, tzaddik. Amar lahem, says Hashem to the malachim, Eini danat adam ela b'sha'ato. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I only judge a person based on where he is right now. And similarly, we see in the Gemara Rosh Hashanah, stuff Tezeh Amud Bet, says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, is quoting our pasuk, Ein danin et adam ela lefi ma'asav shel ota sha'a. He says that a person is only judged based on his deeds at the time of the judgment, not according to his future deeds. Ka'asher, Hashanah Amar, says in the pasuk, Ki shama Elohim et kol anar ba'asher hu sham. Because Hashem heard the voice of the lad when Yishmael was crying out, Ba'asher hu sham, where he is, meaning Ba'asher hu sham, where you are, that is where you're being judged. You're not being judged based on the future. Okay, so based on that, we have a big question. How is that we're judging in our parasha, the Ben Sorah umoreh, based on where he's going to, a piece so full, based on where he's going to end up? We see from Yishmael, you judge him based on where he is right now. So I don't get it. The Ben Sorah umoreh didn't do any capital offenses right now. He didn't do all those crazy stuff right now. So how come we're killing him? What's it all about? Stira. So I looked this up a bit, and actually I found there's actually one rabbi who gathered 12 answers to this question. So I want to say over 2 answers that I saw that I enjoyed, and then I want to give you Rabbi Nordlich's answer to the question. Okay, so first off, the first thing I saw is based off of the Panim Yafot. The Panim Yafot says, you know what? Yishmael is also being judged based on Sofo, based on where he's going to end. Because why? Because the Gemara Baba Batra, it's actually machlok, but the Gemara Baba Batra, Daf Tezeh Amud Bet says, Yishmael asa teshuvah, that the end of Yishmael's life, he's going to do teshuvah. When Yitzchak walk in front of him to bury Abraham, Yishmael does teshuvah. So therefore, no, not even, Ba'asher Husham, okay, we're learning that based on the Midrash, that, okay, what does that mean? That we don't look into the future. But says the Panim Yafot, but the ending is not a good answer either, because his personal ending is going to be one of teshuvah. Okay. Now, I think that Panim Yafot needs a little bit of the second answer we want to give, that of the Maharsha. The Maharsha says that Yishmael and the Ben Sorah are very different, because Yishmael, the ta'ana against him, the prosecution against him by the angels, is that his kids are going to be bad. Meaning, when it says Ba'asher hu sham, when we're going to judge Yishmael based on where he is, you don't have to necessarily learn it where he is right this second, but where he is, who, and not where his kids are going to be. And then I saw brought down that the Baalei Tosfot also appears to go in this direction. Okay, so that is the approach of the Maharsha, the approach of the Panim Yafot. And actually, it works very well, because at the very end of our parasha, this is in Perek Kavdal, Pasuk Tetzayin, we have a Pasuk. The Pasuk says, Lo yumetu avot al banim, ubanim lo yumetu al avot, ish becheto yumatu. The Pasuk at the end of our parasha says, fathers won't be killed because of the kids, and sons won't be killed because of the fathers. Everybody has to be judged based on their own sins. So that's the difference. That Yishmael there was a prosecution against Yishmael when it came to his kids, and that's not fair. That you can't do. But the Ben Sorah umoreh, that we're allowed to do, because we're judging him based on his future. Okay, but still, that doesn't go with the classic interpretation of Yishmael. The classic tshuva answer that we get, that we learn for Rosh Hashanah, is do tshuva now, do tshuva now, do tshuva on Yom Kippur, take this month of Elul, take the 40 days, and if you can change yourself to where you are now, we're going to learn from Yishmael that that's how you get judged and not based on the future. So how does that work out? So says Rabbi Nordlich, his answer, now this is based on the actual language of the Midrash. The Midrash says that the answer that God gives to the angels is, where is he achshav? He doesn't answer to the angels. You can't judge him based on his kids. He could have said to them, don't you know the end of the pasuk in our parsha? Don't kill the fathers based on the kids. That's what God could have answered. But God didn't answer that. God said, what is he now? And that's how he should be judged. But it sounds like they had a good claim about the kids, but God's not giving a better claim. And Rabbi Nordlich even suggests, he says, maybe we could say that in that generation, Yishmael was part of the generation of Ma'aseh Avot Siman Labanim. We normally think of the Avot, all the good stuff the Avot did, there's a spiritual genetics that gets passed down. But it could be that that's true also of the Yishmael. And we know that there are sources. Yishmael and Esav, they also had a spiritual energy. That's also going to the next generation. So if we have a Ma'aseh Avot Siman Labanim for Yishmael's kids, and they're going to be these big murderers, so maybe there is a ta'ana of the angel angels, being like, he should be judged for his kids because right now he's setting up the spiritual genetics for them. And if they're going to be so evil, we can judge him right now on what he's going to create in the future. But then HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, no, we don't work that way. We go with what is Achshav right now. But ask Rabbi Norlich one last question. He says, the Ben Sora umoreh. So what are we saying? We're saying that right now he has these bad midot, he has this ta'ava for food and wine, he's beginning to steal, and this is going to lead to like a terrible, terrible place. We see that his midot are going in a place. Even though he's zakai right now, the midot are just like, it's going in a bad way. But we have another chazal. That tells us you shouldn't be so quick to judge someone because of the midot that they're born with. We know we have the famous chazal that Esav was born admoni, was born red, which symbolizes a killer, and so was David HaMelech. But we know David HaMelech used it for good to fight the milchamot Hashem, while Esav used it for bad. So it's really the traits, the midot, whether they're good or bad, it's how you use the midot. A midot that could seem a little bit. There are midot that are more difficult. The Rambam speaks about kas being a lot more difficult. There are certain midot that are harder to deal with. But you see someone like David HaMelech had the same trait as Esav and was able to use it in the proper kind of way. So what we are already judging the Ben Sora umoreh with these bad midot? Like, what's going on over here? But interestingly, the Midrash gives another reason for why David HaMelech was different than Esav. So if you look at the actual pasuk in Shmuel, this is Shmuel Aleph, Perek Det Zayin, pasuk Yud Bet, says the pasuk, Vayishlach v'vi'eu v'hu admoni im yefe einayim v'tov ro'i. It says that he was admoni, but he also had yefe einayim. He had these beautiful, beautiful eyes. Says the Midrash in Breshit Rabbah. This is a Perek Samach Gimel Od Het. Says the Midrash. When Shmuel saw that David was admoni, as our pasuk says, "Who admoni?" V'kevan shara Shmuel David admoni, nityareh. He got very scared. He said, "Oh my God, this guy could be a shofech damim like Esav." So HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him, "No, keep going." It says he has yefeh einayim. And what does yefeh einayim mean? It says, it means that Esav midat atzmo hu oreg, aval zeh midat sanhedrin hu oreg. The Midrash explains that einayim, eyes, you have somebody seeing for you, watching for you. You had yefeh einayim, meaning he followed the path of the Sanhedrin. He used the rabbis, the Torah, our tradition, our Masoret. He used the Torah for the eyes. He didn't do things on his own. He asked the rabbis, what should I do next? While Esav didn't have those beautiful eyes, and therefore Esav was a murderer. He's murdering just because he wanted to murder. Now, a side idea that I was thinking of, is, okay, we're speaking about eyes for a second. So David HaMelech has these beautiful eyes. Where do they come from? So I saw it brought down that David HaMelech comes from Yehuda, who comes from Leah. And what do we know? Leah had beautiful eyes. She had einayim rakot. So I know that there's one approach that says einayim rakot, she was crying and it was red. But in our Midrash right now, we're seeing differences between the eyes of David and the eyes of Esav. So let's take this back over here. Let's learn Leah's beautiful eyes as soft eyes. Einayim rakot, she has beautiful eyes. But we see from our Midrash, Esav does not have beautiful eyes. So if Esav doesn't have beautiful eyes, he can't be with Leah. This is about eye. Now, what does it mean, beautiful eyes? Beautiful eye means, are you following the Masorah? Are you following the Torah? Are you following the rabbis? Leah had beautiful eyes. She wanted to stay on the proper path. But Esav did not have beautiful eyes. He wanted to do things on his own. He had this independence level that just doesn't work. So back to Rabbi Norlich. So Rabbi Norlich now says that if you have beautiful eyes, that means you follow in the way of the Sanhedrin, of your batel to the rabbis, to the traditions, to the Torah, to your forefathers. Maybe that's the chiluk between Yishmael and the Ben Sora umoreh. And he quotes Rav Tzadok HaKohen that says that we know that with the two famous sons that we have to always fight with. We have Esav. Esav's koach, you can see in his name. His name means asui. He's the doer. He's the person of action. But Yishmael's koach comes from where? From the shmi'ah, from the listening. Yishmael, he listens to God. He has this power of shmi'ah. Now, with all the problems we have with Yishmael, and there are even midrashim that go the other way and said, what does it mean? God hears the pain that we get from Yishmael. Okay, that's one approach. But according to this approach, that with all the problems we have with Yishmael, he still listens to his father. I remember reading once a midrash. There's a midrash that says that Abraham came to visit Yishmael later on. He actually visited Yishmael twice later on in his life. And both times Yishmael wasn't home. And when he got there the first time, he met Yishmael's first wife. And he didn't like her. And he felt she had bad midot. So he sent a message to that first wife to Yishmael. That Yishmael would get the message. She's bad midot, divorce her. And then he came back a little bit time later, and she was gone, and there was a new wife. So meaning Yishmael had listened to his father's advice, and then he sent a code message to his son. This wife I like. This one is a good one. So we see over here that Yishmael, who comes from the house of Abraham. Now, what do we know about Abraham? Hashem picks Abraham specifically because Abraham knows how to teach his descendants how to do tzedakah, how to do mishpat, how to be good people. Meaning he's the guy that can do chinuch, that can teach the next generation of kids. And to a certain extent, with a lot of problems, but to a certain extent, Yishmael still has that ability to listen listen. He still was able to take on a couple of the midot of Avraham, whether it would be the chesed, whether it be the emunah, whether it's the tefillah. Yishmael stood at a certain level of listening to Avraham that made it worth it, that made it that he can actually teach his kids that they could have a next generation to actually work at there's a chance for it to go somewhere. But when it comes to the Ben Sora Umoreh, he doesn't listen. He isn't attached to the Masoret. He doesn't listen to the Kol Aviv, the Kol Imo. It doesn't exist. He has his own eyes. He's like Esav. He'll do whatever he wants. And if that's so, he's going to do whatever he wants. That's when Chazal say, judge him al pi sofo, judge him based on where he's going to go be at the end, because there's no hope. If a person makes a conscious decision to cut himself off from his parents' tradition, from the Torah, then the sofo is already set. There's nothing you can do about it. But a person could be as evil as Yishmael. But if there's a little bit of shmiyah there, if there's a little bit of that listening, that hearing, you'll be able to survive. Shabbat Shalom.